I should have said no. A normal person would have said no. But the problem was, when Sebastian looked at me with those exhausted eyes, his body wrapped in white bandages, his voice hoarse from blood loss, I no longer saw a mafia man. I only saw loneliness, and that was far more dangerous. Just tonight, I muttered. The corner of Sebastian's mouth immediately curved up. Good. I didn't say I'd sleep with you. What a shame. I could change my mind. No, you won't. I hated how he always spoke as if he understood me better than I understood myself. Sebastian slowly propped himself up. The wound made him wince slightly, but he still tried to act normal. The room on the left down the hall is the guest room. Do you really live here alone? Yeah. In an apartment this big? Like a palace. I like the quiet. Such a simple answer that it caught me off guard. I always thought someone like Sebastian would constantly be surrounded by bodyguards, parties, beautiful people, and loud music. But this penthouse was far too silent, cold, beautiful, and terribly lonely. I followed him down a long marble-tiled hallway. Warm golden light reflected off dark paintings hung along the walls. Then I stopped abruptly before a half-open door. Inside was an entire room filled with guitars and old vinyl records. I blinked. You actually play music? Sebastian stood a few steps behind me. When I can't sleep. I thought mafia men shot someone when they couldn't sleep. Only on Mondays. I laughed out loud before I could stop myself. And immediately Sebastian looked at me. The air slowed down strangely. I like hearing you laugh, he said softly. My heart beat out of rhythm again. Damn it. I turned away quickly. Where's the guest room? Sebastian didn't call out my obvious deflection. He just smiled faintly and led me to the room at the end of the hall. The room was bigger than my entire rented apartment. King-sized bed. Glass windows looking straight out over the Chicago River. Everything so pristine it looked like a model suite. There are new clothes in the wardrobe, Sebastian said. I had someone buy them. I spun around. Wait, when exactly? While we were in the car. You bought clothes for me while fleeing a gunfight? Multitasking. I genuinely didn't know whether to be afraid or impressed anymore. Sebastian leaned his shoulder against the doorframe. Get some sleep. What about you? I still have some calls to make. At 3 in the morning? My world doesn't sleep. That sentence made something heavy settle in my chest. I hesitated for a few seconds, then asked quietly, Are you okay? Sebastian paused. Just for a moment, but I saw it. He looked at me for a long time before answering. No one's asked me that in a long time. My chest tightened. Before I could think of what to say, Sebastian had already stepped closer. Too close. The familiar scent of dark sandalwood cologne wrapped around me. Sleep well, Elliot. Then he leaned down and pressed a light kiss to my forehead. Very soft. Very gentle. I turned to stone. Sebastian left before I could react. The door clicked shut, and I stood in the middle of an unfamiliar room, heart pounding wildly. All because of one kiss on the forehead. For God's sake. I was so done for. Couldn't sleep. How could I sleep? Just a few hours ago I was a perfectly ordinary college student. And now I was in the penthouse of Chicago's most dangerously handsome mafia man. I tossed and turned in bed for nearly an hour. Finally, around 4 in the morning, I gave up. I stepped out of the room, intending to find some water. The penthouse was completely silent. Then I heard piano music. Soft, melancholic. Each note echoed through the darkness, slowing my footsteps. I followed the sound to the living room. Sebastian was sitting at a grand piano near the glass window. He wore black trousers and a simple dark t-shirt, black hair falling slightly across his forehead. The city lights draped around him like an old film. He played beautifully, so beautifully that my chest ached in a strange way. I leaned against the doorframe and watched him for several minutes without a word, until Sebastian suddenly said, You've been watching me for a while now. I startled. Do you have eyes in the back of your head? The glass reflects you. Oh. Sebastian stopped playing and turned to look at me. Can't sleep. I think I have psychological trauma. Fair. I walked closer to the piano. What piece is that?
Clair de lune.
I was surprised. I know that piece. I'm surprised too. I'm educated, you know? Sebastian laughed softly. Then he pulled the chair beside him out. Sit down. I hesitated for a moment but eventually sat beside him. Close enough that our legs lightly touched. Sebastian placed his hands on the keys again. Do you play? A little. Show me. I don't play in front of other people. Then I'm not other people. My heart dropped a foolish beat. I cleared my throat and placed my hands on the keys. My fingers trembled slightly when I started. But as the familiar melody rose, I gradually relaxed. Sebastian watched me play in silence. His gaze made me more nervous than being held at gunpoint. After a few minutes, I stopped. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you're thinking something. I am thinking. What? Sebastian tilted his head. You're not like what I imagined. What did you imagine? That a well-behaved student would cry and run away from me. I've been considering it. But you're still here. The air slowed. I didn't know how to respond. Because he was right. I was still here. When I should have run away long ago. Sebastian glanced down at my lips for a moment. Then, very quietly, he asked, Back in the alley. My heart started pounding. Did you really hate it when I kissed you? I swallowed dryly. This isn't the right time to ask that. So that means you didn't hate it. Sebastian. Yeah. You're flirting again. The corner of his mouth curved up slowly. And you still haven't walked away. Damn it. I was about to respond when Sebastian's phone rang. The screen lit up with a name. Father. The smile on his lips vanished instantly. The air went cold with it. Sebastian stared at the screen for a few seconds, then stood up. Sorry. I gave a small nod. He went out to the balcony and answered the call. Through the glass, I could still clearly see his face growing colder as he listened to the voice on the other end. Then suddenly, No. Sebastian's voice was low but sharp as a blade. I won't bring him into this. I stiffened, heart pounding. Him. Sebastian turned his back to the glass, his shoulders rigid. I've said it, he said coldly. Elliot has nothing to do with this. My name in his mouth made something in my stomach twist strangely. Then the man on the other end suddenly spoke loud enough that fragments drifted through the phone to me. Weakness will get you killed. Sebastian was silent for several seconds. Then he looked straight at me through the glass. Those gray eyes went dark. And for the first time since we'd met, I saw something in his eyes more frightening than any gun. Fear. I had never thought that someone like Sebastian Cole could be afraid. He was always so calm, so dangerous, so in control of everything. But that moment on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, eyes locked onto me through the glass, Sebastian looked like a man standing before the one thing that could destroy him. And I hated how my heart softened because of that. The call ended a few minutes later. Sebastian stood motionless on the balcony for a while longer before coming back inside. I pretended to look down at the piano keys as if I hadn't heard a thing. He walked over. The air between us was completely different from before. Heavier. More real. Was that your father? I asked quietly. Yeah. He's frightening. Sebastian let out a flat laugh. You only heard his voice. I looked up at him. He doesn't like me? Sebastian was silent for a few seconds. Then he sat down across from me, elbows resting on his knees. He doesn't like the fact that I have something to lose. That answer made my chest constrict. But I'm not anything to you. Elliot. His voice dropped low. I killed someone because I watched you get held at gunpoint. I went still. Sebastian looked straight into my eyes. That's no longer nothing anymore. The room fell completely silent. My heart pounded so hard it ached inside my chest. I didn't know what to say, because part of me wanted to deny it. But the other part remembered how he pulled me behind him in the middle of the gunfire. Remembered the look in his eyes when I screamed his name in the hotel. Remembered the stupid sense of safety I felt when he held me in the car. Terrible. Just terrible. Sebastian exhaled softly, then stood up. I'll protect you. You can't. I can. Sebastian. I stood up too. You're the reason I'm in danger. He was silent. I knew I was right. It showed clearly in his eyes. So, I took a deep breath. Maybe I should go back to campus in the morning. Sebastian immediately looked up. No. I can't hide in your penthouse forever. Yes, you can. I have classes. I'll buy the school. I stared at him for several seconds. What did you just say? Westbridge, right? Sebastian said calmly. I can buy a stake in it. You insane rich lunatic. The corner of his mouth curved up slightly. You're adorable when you yell. I'm being serious. So am I. I ran both hands through my hair in desperation. You don't understand. I don't belong in this world. Sebastian looked at me for a long time. Then he stepped forward. One step at a time. Until I had to tilt my head back to look at him because we were too close. Do you think I want you to belong in it? His voice turned unexpectedly gentle. I want you as far from it as possible. Then let me go. No. Why? One beat of silence. Then Sebastian raised his hand and lightly touched my cheek. Because I'm selfish. My heart missed a beat. Sebastian, I know you should stay away from me, he said softly. I know I'm dangerous. His fingers brushed very lightly beneath my eye. But for the first time in years, those gray eyes locked onto mine. I don't want to let someone go. I hated how my resolve softened. Hated it so much. Because no one had ever looked at me like that before. Like I actually mattered. My phone suddenly buzzed and shattered the moment. I startled and pulled it out. The screen showed Mason, my roommate. I answered immediately. Hello, Elliot. Mason practically screamed into the phone. Where the hell are you? I pulled the phone away from my ear. Just calm down. Calm down my ass. There's mafia standing outside our dormitory. I froze. What? I'm serious. Mason lowered his voice as if afraid someone would hear. There have been 3 black SUVs parked outside the entrance for an hour. One guy in a suit even asked me what latte flavor you like. I slowly turned to look at Sebastian. He looked completely unbothered. I just increased security. What kind of security involves bringing mafia to a dormitory? Sebastian shrugged. At least your friend is still alive. I want to be alive too. Mason on the other end shrieked. Wait, are you with Sebastian Cole right now? It's a long story. Oh my God, Elliot. The internet is losing its mind. I shut my eyes in misery. I don't want to know. Too late. People are shipping you too. Sebastian laughed right beside me. My face went red all the way down to my neck. Mason, please don't read that stuff. I can't stop. There's fan art already. I want to die. There are TikTok edits too. I'm hanging up. I cut the call and buried my face in my hands on the sofa. My life is over. Sebastian sat down beside me. Very close. You're famous now. Not like this. I think it's great. Of course you do. I love that the whole world knows you're mine. I spun to face him. You can't say things like that in that voice. What voice? The voice that makes people weak in the knees. Sebastian laughed under his breath. Damn it. This man knew exactly what he was doing. I shot to my feet. I need air. The balcony is over there. I didn't ask. I answered anyway. I shot him a glare and headed to the balcony before I died of a racing heart. The Chicago night wind was biting cold. Below, the city still blazed with light as if nothing had happened. I leaned on the railing, trying to breathe normally. A moment later, the glass door behind me opened. Sebastian stepped up beside me. Silence for a few seconds. Then he spoke. Are you afraid of me? I didn't answer right away. Honestly, first, yes. But now, the most frightening thing about Sebastian wasn't guns or the mafia. It was the way he made me want to stay. I should be, I finally said softly. Sebastian looked out at the city. But, I turned to look at him. The wind tossed his black hair under the city lights. Breathtakingly beautiful. But you're not like what I thought. Sebastian's gaze slowly shifted to me. Then suddenly, he leaned down. His lips stopped just centimeters from mine. "So what do you think I am?" My heart nearly stopped. I couldn't answer, because right now, all I could think about was how much I wanted to kiss him. The distance between our lips was so close I could feel Sebastian's breath on my skin. Warm, slow, deadly dangerous. "Sebastian." My voice came out hoarse. "Yeah, this is a terrible idea. Very terrible." "Then why are you still doing it?" The corner of his mouth curved up ever so slightly. "Because you haven't stepped back." My heart pounded so hard it made me dizzy. Damn it. I hated that he was always right. I should step back. Should run. Should remember that the person in front of me was mafia, was trouble, was danger wearing a handsome face. But instead, I tilted up just a little more, and Sebastian kissed me. This time it was nothing like the alley. Not hurried. Not to fool anyone. Just his lips slowly meeting mine, as if giving me every chance to change my mind. I should have changed my mind. But then his hand rested on my waist. Very lightly, very gently, and I was completely, utterly done for. Kissed him back. Sebastian exhaled softly against my lips, as if he had been waiting for this for a very long time. His hand tightened gently around my waist, pulling me closer against his warm chest. The kiss deepened, slow enough to make my head spin. I had never been kissed like this before, as if I were precious, as if the person kissing me truly wanted me. When Sebastian finally pulled back, his forehead still rested against mine, both of us breathing unevenly. "Wow," he said quietly. My face burned. "Don't say wow after kissing someone." "Sorry." The corner of his mouth was still curved. "But you kiss better than I expected." "I hate you." "No, you don't." This time I didn't argue. It was obvious enough to be embarrassing. Sebastian gently brushed my hair back behind my ear. Those gray eyes of his softened in a dangerously tender way. "I've wanted to do that since you screamed in my face at the hotel. Your taste is very strange. You don't know the half of it." I laughed helplessly and leaned back against the railing. The air between us shifted completely after that kiss. Closer, warmer, and so much more frightening, because now I could no longer pretend I wasn't drawn to Sebastian. He stood close beside me, one hand still resting at my back as if afraid I'd disappear. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking I need therapy." Sebastian laughed softly. "I'll pay for it." "Of course you can afford it. Anything you like, I'll buy it. I'm not a sugar baby." "What a shame." "Sebastian." He laughed out loud again. And God help me, I was already addicted to that sound. Sebastian's phone buzzed and cut through the moment. He glanced at the screen, and his brow furrowed slightly. "What is it? Work? Now? The mafia world has no days off." I hate that sentence. Sebastian leaned down and pressed another quick kiss to my forehead before heading inside. Such a natural gesture that my heart betrayed me yet again. I stood on the balcony a few more minutes trying to cool my face down. Useless. My lips were still warm from his kiss. For God's sake. When I went back inside, I found Sebastian on the phone, his familiar ice-cold voice in full effect. "No." He leaned against the kitchen counter. "Wait until morning. I don't care what he's paying. If O'Connor touches the university." His voice went razor-sharp in a way that made me shiver. "I will burn his entire family." The room was silent for a moment after he hung up. I stood there looking at him. That was the strangest thing about Sebastian. One minute he was kissing me as if I were the most precious thing in his world. The next he could coldly talk about killing someone. Two completely different people existing inside him at the same time. And I didn't know which one was more frightening. Sebastian looked up and met my eyes. His expression immediately softened. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you just remembered I'm mafia." "Because you are mafia." "Yeah." He stepped toward me. "I never said I was a good person." "I know." "Then why did you kiss me?" My heart stumbled. I couldn't answer, because I didn't know either. Sebastian looked at me for a moment, then unexpectedly reached up and tilted my chin. "Elliot." "What?" Don't try to understand everything right now. His voice was very quiet. Just feel it. This man was truly dangerous. Not because of guns, but because he knew exactly how to make someone let their guard down. My phone's ringtone suddenly blared through the room. Mason calling. I closed my eyes. I don't want to answer. Sebastian smiled softly. Pick it up. I reluctantly pressed answer. Immediately Mason's voice exploded through the speaker. You actually kissed him? I nearly dropped the phone. What? The paparazzi got it on camera. The blood in my body went cold. How? Glass balcony, you idiot. I slowly turned my head toward the window. Far below on the street, a few camera flashes were still blinking. I wanted to jump off the building then and there. Mason, Twitter is on fire. He was practically crying from laughing. The hashtag mafia boyfriend is trending at school. Sebastian behind me burst into laughter. I whipped around and glared at him. You think this is funny? Pretty funny, yeah? I'm about to drop out. No, you're not. Sebastian stepped forward and wrapped his arm around my waist from behind, completely naturally. You're such a dedicated student. I went rigid. Sebastian. Mason screamed through the phone. Oh my God, is he right there? I'm hanging up. Wait. I cut the call and buried my face in my hands in total despair. My life is finished. Sebastian rested his chin on my shoulder from behind. No. His voice was so low and close it made my spine go numb. It's just getting interesting. You are the living definition of a red flag. But you still like me. I said nothing. Sebastian laughed softly right against my ear. See, I hated how well he knew me. Then suddenly an alarm sounded from somewhere in the penthouse. I jumped. Sebastian immediately removed his arms from around me. Every bit of the atmosphere surrounding him shifted in a single second. Cold, sharp, dangerous. A bodyguard appeared from the private elevator. Someone broke into the floor below. Sebastian's brow furrowed. How many? Unknown. I felt my stomach drop straight to the floor. Again. Sebastian turned to face me. His eyes darkened when he saw the panic on my face. Then he stepped directly in front of me and leaned close. Listen to me. His voice was low and steady. Lock your bedroom door. Don't open it for anyone except me. What about you? I'll handle it and come back. I grabbed his hand on instinct. Sebastian. He went still. So did I. The moment I realized I was gripping his hand like I was afraid of him disappearing. Sebastian looked down at my hand for a moment. Then his expression softened completely. You're worried about me. Don't die, I said very quietly. The air was still. A second later, Sebastian bent down and kissed me quickly on the lips. Not a chance, baby. My heart exploded on the spot. Then he turned, drew a gun from his holster, and walked away like a demon wearing a human face. Baby, I shouted after him the second the elevator doors closed. No response. Only the red alarm blaring through every corner of the penthouse. I stood frozen for several seconds, heart going haywire. Part of me wanted to do what Sebastian said. Lock the door and pretend I'd never met him. The other part was going out of my mind with worry for the mafia man who just called me baby and walked off with a gun like he was taking an evening stroll. I hated my life so much. I had just turned to go back to the room when I heard it. Bang! A gunshot from the floor below. I flinched hard. Then two more. For God's sake. This was really happening. I tried to keep walking. Honestly, I did. I made it exactly 3 steps. Then I turned around and ran back. Damn it! I bolted to the kitchen counter where Sebastian had left another gun. I stared at it for a few seconds. What am I even doing? I'd never held a gun in my life. I'd even cried when I accidentally ran over a squirrel in 3rd grade. And yet, I picked up the Glock with 2 trembling hands. Okay. I muttered to myself. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot. I took the staircase down to the lower level of the penthouse. The sounds grew clearer. There was the crash of something breaking, someone shouting, and then Sebastian's voice. I'll say it one last time. His voice was so cold it gave me chills. Who sent you? I peered through the stair railing. A man was being forced to his knees on the floor by Sebastian. A gun pointed directly at his head. The scene was terrifying enough to cut off my breath. Sebastian wore just his black t-shirt, the sleeve stained with blood from his old wound. His face was expressionless, those gray eyes holding none of the warmth I had seen on the balcony. This was the real Sebastian Cole. Not the man who played piano for me, not the man who kissed me in the rain, but mafia, dangerous enough that the whole room felt like it had run out of oxygen. The man on the floor was shaking. I don't know. Wrong answer. Sebastian cocked the gun. I immediately missed a step and made a sound. Clunk. The entire room snapped upward. And just my luck. I was standing there holding the gun backwards. Sebastian looked at me for a few seconds. Then he closed his eyes in pure resignation. You're holding it backwards, baby. I know. I don't think you do. The man being held on the floor suddenly seized on the distraction and lunged at Sebastian. Everything happened too fast. I only had time to scream, Sebastian! Bang! A gunshot rang out. The man collapsed to the floor. Blood spread across the white marble. I went completely rigid. The gun in my hand dropped to the floor with a clatter. Sebastian immediately turned to me. Elliot. I couldn't respond. I knew he did it in self-defense. I knew if it hadn't been that man, it might have been Sebastian. But seeing someone shot right in front of me for the very first time, my stomach lurched violently. Sebastian crossed the room quickly to where I stood. The frightening cold that had surrounded him disappeared almost instantly when he saw my face go pale. Hey! His voice went soft. Look at me. I was still frozen. Sebastian gently lifted my face with both hands. Elliot, you killed him. I know. I saw everything. I know. His voice stayed perfectly calm. No deflección. No justificación. Somehow that made everything feel more complicated. I'm sorry you had to see that. I looked into his eyes. And the thing that shocked me most was, Sebastian was not without feeling. He didn't enjoy killing, but he wouldn't hesitate to do it when necessary. That truth was more frightening than anything else. I swallowed. I need a moment. Sebastian nodded immediately. Okay. He didn't try to touch me again. No flirting. No jokes. Just standing there watching me with very quiet eyes. A flash of guilt crossed his expression and made my chest ache in a strange way. I'll have someone clean this up, he said softly. Go upstairs first? I gave a small nod, then turned and walked up the stairs on trembling legs. I sat in the guest room for almost 20 minutes, my mind in chaos. I understood Sebastian had no choice. His world was too different from the one I lived in. But that was exactly what made everything so dangerous. Because I was starting to fall for someone who could pull a trigger without flinching. A gentle knock came at the door. Elliot. Sebastian. I was quiet for a moment, then answered, Come in. The door opened. Sebastian had changed his shirt. His hair was still slightly damp like he'd washed the blood off his face. He stood in the doorway and looked at me for a long time. Did I scare you? I didn't answer right away. Then finally I exhaled. A little. Sebastian gave a small nod, as if he'd expected it. Fair. He didn't come in right away. He stood at a distance as if giving me the power to choose. That softened something in me in an infuriating way. I never wanted you to see that side of me, he said quietly. But it's still you. Yeah. Silence. Rain still tapped lightly against the glass outside. Then Sebastian suddenly asked, Do you want me to lie to you? I looked up. What? If you want, I can pretend to be better than I am. Those gray eyes looked straight at me. But you deserve to know exactly who you're getting involved with. My chest constricted. Damn it. How could he be both terrifying and sincere at the same time? I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. You drive me crazy. The corner of Sebastian's mouth finally curved up very slightly. It seems that way. I should stay away from you. Yeah. But I don't want to. The smile on his lips disappeared. The air went still. I realized what I just said and my face went instantly hot. What I mean is, Sebastian stepped forward, very slowly, as if afraid of startling me. Then he knelt down in front of the sofa where I sat. A Sebastian Cole kneeling before anyone was a sight capable of giving all of Chicago a heart attack. But he simply looked up at me with those gray eyes, softer than I had ever seen them. Elliot. My heart pounded. I'll try, he said quietly. I can't promise to become a good person. His hand was very gentle when it touched mine. But for you, his fingers intertwined with mine. I can try to become better. I swear my heart melted on the spot. This was it. I was completely done. And worse still, I think Sebastian was too. I don't remember who made the first move, me or Sebastian. Only that one moment he was kneeling in front of me with eyes dangerously tender, and the next I had pulled him up and kissed him. Sebastian went visibly still from surprise. Then he immediately held my waist as if afraid I'd change my mind. This kiss was nothing like any of the ones before. No testing. No teasing. Just two people too exhausted from trying to deny what was happening between them. Sebastian kissed me deep and slow until my head was spinning. His hands slid into my hair very gently, completely at odds with the man who had been holding a gun downstairs. That was the most frightening thing about Sebastian. He always treated me as if I were fragile, as if I were worth cherishing. When we finally pulled apart, I had almost forgotten how to breathe. Sebastian rested his forehead against mine, those gray eyes darkening. You're honestly going to kill me someday. I laughed breathlessly. You're the mafia and you're saying that? Bullets don't frighten me. He brushed his thumb softly across my cheek. You do. My chest ached in a strange way. I had never been loved like this before, intensely enough to be frightening. Then my phone vibrated loudly again. I shut my eyes in misery. Mason? No. I looked at the screen and went completely still. It's my mom. Sebastian immediately sat up straight. Does she know? I don't know. I answered with trembling hands. Mom. Elliot Harper. I held the phone away from my ear. Yes. Explain to me right now why CNN just showed footage of you running in the rain with a very handsome mafia man. I went still. It made CNN? Sebastian beside me laughed softly. I glared at him. Mom, it's not what you think. Then why is there a photo of you two kissing on a balcony? How strong was their zoom lens? Focus. I held my head. Mom, just calm down and let me explain. Are you dating a mafia man? Sebastian whispered right beside me. Technically. I shoved his face away. You quiet. My mom on the other end gasped loudly. He's there, isn't he? It's a long story. Elliot. My mother's voice suddenly turned serious. Are you safe? I stopped short. On reflex, I looked over at Sebastian. He was already looking at me. Those gray eyes softened immediately when they met mine. And God help me, I felt safe. Yes, I finally answered softly. I'm okay. Sebastian went slightly still when he heard that. My mother exhaled with relief on the other end of the line. All right, just please don't make the news because you got arrested. I'll do my best. And if you really do like that boy of yours. She paused for a moment. At least he's handsome. Mom. Sebastian burst out laughing. I wanted to leave the planet. After hanging up, I immediately pressed my face into the sofa cushion. I will never recover from this. Sebastian sat down beside me. At least your mom doesn't hate me. I think my mom's operating system crashed from shock. The corner of his mouth curved. I could just start calling her mom too, if you'd like. I shot up. What kind of proposal is that? Sebastian blinked with perfect innocence. Oh, so that means you agree to marry me? I never said that. He laughed until his shoulders shook. And God, I loved seeing him happy. That moment was so peaceful I nearly forgot all the chaos waiting outside. Until Sebastian's phone buzzed. This time, the smile on his lips vanished immediately. I have to go. My heart dropped. Where? Family meeting. At 5 in the morning? That's the favorite hour of old mafia men. Couldn't laugh, because Sebastian's expression was too serious. What's going on? He was quiet for a moment, then said, My father wants to meet you. The blood in my body went ice cold.
No.
Elliot.
No.
I jumped up from the sofa instantly. I am not meeting the mafia boss. He won't hurt you. You saying that does not make it reassuring. Sebastian stood up after me. Hey! He took hold of my hand. Look at me. I reluctantly looked up. He just wants to know who's been driving me insane. That doesn't help. Sebastian smiled faintly and ran his thumb across the back of my hand. You don't need to like him. I don't think he'll like me either. He doesn't like anyone. That sounds terrifying. He'll behave himself. And if he doesn't? Sebastian's eyes darkened very slightly. Then he said in a tone of utter calm, Then I'll choose you. The room went dead silent. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Sebastian. I mean it. That's your father. You're you. Such a simple answer it left me speechless. Sebastian cupped my face in his hands. I grew up in blood and gunfire. He said quietly. I never wanted a way out. His fingers brushed gently over my cheekbone. Until I met you. My eyes stung stupidly. I hate it when you say things that sound like movie dialogue. But you like hearing it. A little. The corner of his mouth curved. Then Sebastian leaned down and pressed his lips to mine once more. This time gentle enough to break my heart. I'll get through the meeting quickly, he murmured against my lips. Then take you for breakfast. I blinked. Breakfast? Yeah. After everything that happened tonight? You still have to eat. I laughed helplessly. You are genuinely strange. I know. I don't even understand why I like you. Sebastian looked at me for a moment. Then very softly he said, Because I like you so much I can't understand it either. My heart was officially beyond saving. The elevator chime sounded behind him. The bodyguards had arrived. Sebastian exhaled very quietly and pulled on his jacket. He turned to look at me one last time. Lock up after I'm gone. Okay. Don't open the door for strangers. I'm not 5 years old. Don't flirt with anyone online while I'm gone. I stared at him. What's wrong with you? Possessive. He answered without missing a beat. Very much so. I went red immediately. Sebastian smiled softly and stepped backward toward the elevator. But just before the doors closed, he looked straight at me and said, Welcome to the family, baby. The doors shut, and I stood frozen in the middle of the lavish penthouse as dawn broke. Heart pounding wildly, with one terrifying truth echoing through my head. I think I've actually fallen in love with Sebastian Cole.